This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Whether you need an amazing blog, gallery, or an online store, Squarespace is an all-in-one platform for an awesome online presence and to build and run your business.
All right, hey guys, Dan Watson, and just last week we threw out a review on one of the best mirrorless cameras to have come out ever. And what's interesting is a couple days before that, the Canon 1DX Mark III happened, and it's a camera that can pretty much blow away every other mirrorless camera on the market. And I say that because all you have to do, hit a switch, and that camera's mirror completely goes away. And even though it's a DSLR, it basically becomes a mirrorless camera. This is a camera that's just as good in mirrorless mode, if not better, in every aspect of that camera. So I'm kind of curious your thoughts on this one. So hit me up in the comments below if you would prefer a 1DX that was a mirrorless version of it or the DSLR version of it. I'm also going to throw a poll up on my Instagram, so if you guys are over there, you can hit me up there as well. And then I have the camera coming in very shortly, so stay tuned, subscribe for a hands-on. But I want to tell you about why the 1DX Mark III is probably the most powerful and unbelievable mirrorless camera we have seen thus far. So the first big aspect of this is going to be speed. And honestly, that's probably one of the main reasons that people are shopping for like a 1DX Mark III is that it is one of the fastest camera, if not the fastest camera to exist for sports and wildlife and all these other things that we need it. In fact, just the other day I was shooting some air shows and planes were crossing each other at 500 miles an hour each. And there's just no way of predicting that moment of time. Sometimes I was getting lucky and hitting that frame exactly when they crossed. Sometimes I was getting a little bit too early or a little bit too late. And what I really needed was that frame right in the middle. And I wasn't quite getting it. Now, what's interesting here is that you bump this into mirrorless mode or live view, and you're actually going to get an additional 4 frames every second on the 1DX Mark III, and that is huge on that. And one of the reasons that you would buy a 1DX is for that extra speed. You don't get that if you're in the DSLR mode with the viewfinder. And then also you're able to shoot that with mechanical shutter or an electronic shutter. So when it comes to speed, one of the main reasons to buy a 1DX Mark III, live view is going to win here, and you're actually going to get faster speeds and better shooting in that mode. Now the next one is probably the craziest and most amazing of all of them, but first I do want to give a shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring this video.
I mean, you guys already know they have a ton of awesome templates that make it crazy easy to get your site on the way, even in a matter of minutes. But check this out. You don't even need custom graphics or product shots to get started. So I want to add a picture for my camera guides right on the front page. So I can just click a little image search, type in camera, and bam, I have all of these amazing images I can use as the thumbnail. But maybe you've got a food blog, no problem. Squarespace has you covered there. And check this out. I can actually go in here, change my photo settings, maybe go black and white, control my crops, custom filters, everything that I need. So now I can add products to sell for an online storefront, create some awesome galleries, which I can even password protect from my clients, and have my latest Instagram images imported right to the gallery or even post automatically to the website homepage. Just go set it up. It's 100% free to try out. It's no credit card required. Just use the coupon code Learning Cameras and you'll get 10% off and go live with your new site today.
So the next one is probably the most interesting, and it's because for the longest time you were probably told don't buy a mirrorless camera because of autofocus performance, and for a long time that was true. And we do have a brand new autofocus system on the 1DX Mark III, 191 points. The system looks amazing, but honestly when you start looking at some of the mirrorless specs on this, it starts to look a whole lot better. So when you pop this over into live view, you're going to notice that immediately you have pretty much full coverage of the entire frame, over 90%. And any of you who have ever shot a good focusing mirrorless camera are going to know that that is just one of the biggest differences and one of the hardest things to go back to a DSLR from once you have that. I mean, being able to track from one end of the frame to the other, no matter where subject enters and leaves, that's huge for wildlife, it's huge for sports. You never have to resort to just this small cluster in the middle of the frame. So you're going to get that one. And then also low light results, you're going to have -6 EV when you're in live view, and that's like pitch black darkness. Now, you do need to have a 1.2 lens in order to actually see that, but honestly, Canon has some great 1.2 lenses, and if you're shooting in -6 EV anyway, you probably should be using a very wide aperture lens. So you're gonna get that improvement as well. Now, another one is going to be the ability to use lenses at f11, and that's gonna mean like a 100 to 400 f5.6 with a 2x teleconverter. Canon has a 400 5.6 with a 2x teleconverter. You can use all of those in live view on the 1DX Mark III. You're gonna be limited to f8 if you pop into the DSLR mode. Yeah, we'll do some tests on the real world data, but from now and this standpoint, it looks like from autofocus performance in live view is going to be another win for the mirrorless mode. So you might have been wondering what all these lenses are here for other than to make you jealous, and this is the other reason to want a mirrorless version of these cameras. These lenses are just amazing. Canon's newest lenses right here have been making waves. They've been winning awards. They've had so much press for best lenses of 2018 and 2019, and for a good reason. The rendering on these are amazing. Colors, focusing, contrast. They have a ton of features in them. These are just built like a tank. Some of the sharpest lenses on the market right here, and 15 to 35 with image stabilization on here, 24 to 70 with stabilization, and a 50mm 1.2 and an 85mm 1.2 that are just, oh man, so sharp all the way through. So you're jealous if you're a 1DX Mark shooter. You want to be using these because they're just so amazing. The new 70 to 200 also super compact, half the size of this one right here, and you can't be using it if you are a 1DX Mark III shooter. And so to add fuel to this fire, Canon just announced that they are pretty much going to be stopping creating any brand new EF lenses. And another thing right there is Canon makes some of the best adapters that you will ever find for these series of cameras. In fact, not only is this one like crazy compact, you barely even notice it exists, they have one with a built-in variable ND filter and a built-in control ring right here that you can use to adjust things on your lens. So having those abilities almost makes using these kind of lenses on a mirrorless camera better than a native mount. Obviously, the 1DX Mark III is a video powerhouse. 5.5K, 60 frames per second, internal, raw. I mean, there is just so many reasons to want a 1DX Mark III for video recording. I myself am longing for that camera for video recording. However, when you do that, because it's a DSLR first, when you pop that mirror out of the way and use it in the mirrorless mode, it's gonna mean that viewfinder is no longer going to work. And it's a nice feature to have an electronic viewfinder, something you can look at for video shooting, especially in those really bright environments, being able to look and check your exposure. You're not gonna have that availability when shooting video. Also, these lenses are better than some of the older EF lenses for shooting video as well. So highly recommend these newer lenses, and you can't use those as well. Plus, a lot of them are image stabilization or have that built in, whereas some of the older EF lenses do not. And so there's a whole lot of reasons to want it to be mirrorless when shooting video. Also, one of the biggest missing features on this was the lack of in-body image stabilization. And I mean, for me, I didn't really fault Canon for this because most DSLRs do not have image stabilization. Although a couple of you reminded me of the Pentax K1, which is a DSLR that does have in-body image stabilization. I think it might be the only one though. So definitely something we're not seeing a lot of. But it doesn't have it, and that can be a huge benefit both for photos and video. It is able to get you 5-axis stabilization, which you see more in video than photos, versus lens stabilization that's only going to give you 3-axis. Also, it's much more powerful. You can usually get up to about 5 stops of stabilization, and it can combine your in-body image stabilization with lens stabilization to get even better. And it's something that Canon has said that they're working on and going to be implementing into their mirrorless cameras. We have not seen it in the 1DX Mark III. And so this is another thing that if we had a mirrorless version of this camera, we would be able to see in-body image stabilization inside that camera. So I'm really curious your thoughts on this. Feel free to hit me up below. Let me know if you would prefer a mirrorless version of the 1DX Mark III, or if you're absolutely happy with it being the DSLR. And if so, Why? What are the reasons why you love a DSLR so much and you think that having this camera as a DSLR version are going to be better, especially with the outgoing EF lenses on here, and how good Canon's adapters is and being able to add all of these control rings on there and variable ND filters and stuff like that. Also, hit me up on Instagram. Feel free to subscribe if you're interested in seeing the hands-on video with the 1DX when I have it in very shortly, and appreciate the like on this video, guys. I've got a new video coming out next week. Stay tuned. It's going to be a fun one. I'll see you soon.